All right, Tom Trento here. We got a good one for you today. Our dear friend and an expert on Islamic doctrine, former Force Recon Marine, former Special FBI agent, developed the counterterrorism areas regarding the Muslim Brotherhood. Our dear friend John Guandolo. John, how you doing?
Thanks, Tom. As always, it is awesome to be on with you. I appreciate it.
You've been doing this stuff a long time. We crossed paths many years ago. Did you ever think in our latter years here, our as we get a little older and the hair gets a little grayer, did you really think we'd be doing this?
Well, when I first started doing this was not my chosen career path, and it's certainly a rocky road to tread. But we were promised that as Christians, we'll be hated and persecuted for speaking truth and following the Lord. So here we are. But I will say, with regards to what's happening in the Trump administration, yes, Steve Coughlin and I began briefing this inside the government. 2004 is when I started in the FBI. He was in the DOD doing it, and we met in 2005. And the things that we briefed are all coming to fruition as we briefed them. And I don't say that from a point of pride or anything else. I say it because if you know the enemy's doctrine and their modus operandi and how they communicate, they tell you what they're going to do and they point you in the direction that they're going. All you got to do is listen. And here we are many years after 9/11, and America is in a much more dangerous situation. But none of our leaders, including Mr. Trump, have articulated the war in which we're engaged, what's actually going on. I think it's because he doesn't seem to understand it. And the decisions that are being made in this administration are just as devastating and dangerous as they've been in the last three administrations. So we've had six, from Mr. Clinton to today, six administrations that have not only failed to identify the enemy and vanquish them, but actions are actually advancing their efforts, the enemy's efforts.
Yeah, it's ironic. And look, this is for 1400 years, the Islamic world has been attacking everybody. And certainly the primary objectives are to destroy Western civilization, the big Satan, the United States. Um, and over these past years since 9/11, there's certainly been a kinetic response, a military response to Islamic Jihad throughout the world. Um, but the other side, the information warfare, the infiltration into the culture, into the mindset, into the warp and whoop of the fabric of America, unknown to those leaders. And what do you think, John? Do we give them any consideration that they are a leader, they, the presidents, on a large global scale, and you kind of have to be nice to everybody, particularly if you want to do business? Trump just came back, $5 trillion deal. He can't be saying Muslims are, evil and satanic. Give me your money. How does a president balance that? Trying to do what's good for the economy of the United States, one of the key issues in the election, but calling out evil when he sees it in the Islamic world.
So I think first of all, not only is that a great question, that's a great place to begin the deeper discussion. And I would say this: can you imagine if Ronald Reagan, when he met Mikhail Gorbachev for the first time in person, he said, "Let me explain to you why we despise your system so much." Can you imagine if he had said publicly, "Hey, we love their system. He's a great guy. Hey, not tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev, but hey, do whatever you want, enslave people." See, what Mr. Reagan did when he did those things and said those things, especially the things he said publicly, like the Soviet Union's an evil empire, it literally rattled the cages in the gulags and the people who were being wrongly imprisoned in a totalitarian state. And it led to the crumbling of a lot of what the Soviet Union was all about. So that's the first part. Now, what Mr. Trump is doing is exactly opposite. He's calling evil good. He's calling evil people good people. And what that does when you don't understand Sharia, because Sharia is everything. It's all about Sharia. It's the blueprint for how the Islamic world fights the war, right? The Quranic concept of war. It is what they seek to impose on the world. And so when you talk to nations that are he said in 2016 during the campaign, I think Islam hates us. And then he proceeded to bend over and submit to Islam and open doors for them, and has literally advanced the Islamic movement in the United States as much as Barack Obama ever did. And this is devastating. It's devastating, especially in light of the fact that he believes he's actually advancing peace. And I think he legitimately wants that. I think he's got people in his administration that are intentionally letting terrorists and jihadis into the Trump camp. And this is where we find ourselves. I think it's absolutely catastrophic failure on Mr. Trump's part.
John, you mentioned Sharia. What's the simple definition of the Sharia for an average American?
From the Islamic perspective, Sharia is Allah's divine law, which comes to humanity through the Quran and the example and the words and actions of the Prophet Muhammad. And so Islam takes the Quran as Islam understands it. So for instance, through the legal concept of abrogation, and the fact that the tafsir, which is a part of Islamic law, legally defines every sentence, every verse in the Quran, and the authoritative actions and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad put it together, and that is Islamic law, that is Sharia. And again, I want to restate this. The stated purpose of Islam is to wage war against non-Muslims until Sharia is imposed on the entire earth and an global Islamic state caliphate is established. That's it.
That sounds like a threat to me, and maybe somebody should have written a book, Sharia, the Threat to America. And ladies and gentlemen, get your copy on Amazon. 19 authors, 2010, it was written, an amazing book. John is one of the authors. I'm one of the authors. And if Islamic law, the Sharia, is what John just said it is, and according to a lot of American philosophical and political and theological scholars, that's not really what Muslims believe. How do you handle that, John? You're sitting there, you kind of know this stuff. You're a force recon Marine in battle. Then you went into the FBI. You worked in the counterterrorism world. Regarding our subject today, you scooped up one of the bad guys that's on the commission, and you hear somebody pontificating that that's not what Muslims believe. What happens in your head when you hear that?
Well, they're grossly ignorant. And I think, many people today lack the ability to discern and reason. And that's who these people are, that say nonsensical things like this. So then what does a Muslim believe if they don't believe Islam? What is it that these people propose that they actually believe? And then they will go on and make up this garbage that's not taught in any mosque or Islamic school. It's not taught in any Islamic organization on the planet. And therein lies the problem. So a couple things, and this is for your audience's benefit. When someone does this and they offer one of these ridiculous comments, these unintellectual, untruthful comments about Islam, and they'll do it from 15 different directions. Well, al-harb, means war in Arabic, so you don't even know what you're talking about. It's not jihad. And I'm like, okay, that's like saying a U.S. person is anyone that happens to be standing in the United States and trying to articulate that in a court of law. And the judge will tell you, I'm about to hold you in contempt because there is a legal definition of the word U.S. person. And just because you create a different definition and it's what you feel like the phrase means, that has no in any way, no impact on what goes on in a legal process. And it's the same. Islam is a totalitarian system governed by a real law that's really adjudicated anywhere there's a Muslim community, and it has real punishments, including death, including stoning, including crucifixion, including taking someone's arm off, or hand off, cutting their hand off, banishment. These are all current legal punishments in Islam that are being adjudicated on a daily basis in the Islamic world, including in Europe and the United States. So the idea that either that's not what real Islam is, well, where is this mystical love thy neighbor version of Islam you're talking about? Can you name one book of Islamic law or one textbook used to teach Muslims about Islam that says that? And I can tell you, in any century, in any language, in any continent, the answer is no, because it's a capital crime in Islam for Muslims to teach other Muslims anything about Islam that is not true. Now, my kind of last point in this great question and door you've opened up here, I'll say this again. Under the law of apostasy, it's a capital crime for Muslims to teach other Muslims anything about Islam, about Sharia, that is not true. It's a capital crime. It's apostasy in Islam to do so, to in any way mock or deceive someone about Sharia. It's a capital crime. On the other hand, under Book R in Islamic law, Umdat al-Salik, Reliance of the Traveler, the most widely used book of Islamic law in North America, in the Muslim community, it states that lying is permissible for a given interest, and that it is obligatory for Muslims to lie to non-Muslims if the goal is obligatory. And it is obligatory for Muslims to wage war against non-Muslims until Sharia is imposed on the whole earth. It's not only obligatory, it's the purpose of Islam. So how is it that what Muslims teach their children, in 10-year-old children in U.S. Islamic schools, is exactly opposite of what Muslim leaders tell our leaders, U.S. leaders at the local, state, and federal level about Islam? How is it that those two things are exactly opposite? One is not true and one is. And since it's a capital crime for Muslims, if they teach something to other Muslims like children about Islam that's not true, and it's obligatory for Muslims to lie to non-Muslims if it advances Islam, I think we know the answer to that.
All right, that analysis, ladies and gentlemen, is critically important. Roll this tape back if you have to. Listen to that again. And I'll add a couple of other layers to the dilemma where an average Christian, an average Jewish person, an average atheist who was born and raised in America, loves the values of America, and likes to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So when it comes to Muslims who are very friendly, they may be your doctor here, whatever, you go, that particular person is not what you're explaining. And they define Islam by the behavior of that particular person, not the 1400 years of Islamic doctrine and teaching. In 2013, John, I was asked to do the 9/11 Memorial Day event in Venice, Florida, and I gave a 16-minute speech. I remember it because all hell broke loose, and I basically explained what we're talking about right now, that those people who flew the airplanes into the buildings in New York and the Pentagon, I think you were in the Pentagon on 9/11, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, they are devout Muslims, true believers. They're following the doctrines and dictates of their faith to the T. They're not radical. They're not extremists. They are Orthodox Muslims following their faith, following Mohammed, following Allah. And I detailed it a bit. All hell broke loose when CARE found out about my talk, and CARE actually forced the city commission of Venice, Florida, beautiful little community on the West Coast, to undergo sensitivity training for allowing me to tell the truth about Islam on public property. Absolutely unbelievable. Then jump to, I think, Mark, what, 2016, we had Anjem Chowdhury on, the jihadi in England, recruiting people to go fight in Afghanistan and other places. He's in jail now. But before he went to jail, we had him on several times. And we asked him one time, Anjem, and he's an Islamic scholar.
Right.
And he's truthful. He tells the truth. I said, Anjem, there's 56 Muslim nations. Pointing to that, you guys want to take over England and America and all this nonsense. Your own countries, tell us the definitive, prototypical, well, beautiful, perfect country exhibiting the Sharia, exhibiting Islam. And this was 2016. Guess what country he identified as the model for Islamic countries worldwide?
Tell me.
Syria, with ISIS controlling it. He said the Islamic State is the perfect state. They're implementing what you talked about earlier, the Sharia, and this is what all Islamic nations, and Tom, you don't like to hear this, but this is the goal of Islam, to bring what's happening in Sharia, what's happening in Syria, following the Sharia, to all countries. That's what we are about. What is your understanding of moderate Islam? Who would you classify as moderate Muslims?
Well, actually, I don't believe in this terminology. There's nothing in the Sharia to say that someone is moderate or extreme. There's simply Islam. The Islam is the Islam which is mentioned in the Quran, in the traditions, the saying, the actions, and the consent of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Now, is he a liar or is he telling the truth, John?
No, Anjem Chowdhury, I've never heard him say anything that's contrary to authoritatively published Islamic law. And that's why I say when people challenge me, they're like, well, my friend so-and-so. And I'm like, or someone will say, are you saying my friend so-and-so is not a nice person? And I will say, yeah, I don't know your friend. They could be a very nice person. But what you're saying they said, that's not Islam. That's not an Islamic teaching. And so you have to live in reality, which is hard for a lot of people. You have to be able to critically think. You have to be able to discern and reason, and you have to know facts from fiction. And therein lies the problem for a lot of people. Islam is what Islam is. You don't get to Judaize or Christianize or anything else Islam. You don't. It's not communism. It's not atheism. It's not anything else. It's Islam. And Islam's purpose that they teach 10-year-olds in U.S. Islamic schools. And in the first sentence, I'll just say, let's do this. In the most widely used textbook in U.S. Islamic schools to teach Muslim children about Islam, it's a book called What Islam is All About. On the very first page, it says, and I quote, Islam is not a religion, however, but a complete way of life. And it goes on to explain that complete way of life is governed by Sharia, which comes from the Quran and the Sunnah, the example of the Prophet Muhammad, that the duty of Muslim citizens, another quote, the duty of Muslim citizens is to be loyal to the Islamic State, that there are 3 duties that every Muslim must perform, and one of them is jihad. And it goes on to say dying in jihad automatically gets you to paradise. Now, when you start looking at this is what they teach 10-year-olds. So how is that different from what Al-Qaeda or ISIS, the Islamic State, teaches? How is that different from what the Muslim Brotherhood, Tablighi Jamaat, Jamaati Islami teach? How is that different from what Iran, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, UAE, Qatar, Turkey teach? It's not. It's normative and universally taught Islam. And that's the point. And so when and you all talked about this on your show a few years ago, when Muslim children in a Muslim American Society mosque in Philadelphia publish a video with children, real children, talking about the armies of Mohammad conquering the infidel and chopping off the heads of the infidel, and everyone's shocked. You know, when I was interviewed at the time, they're like, "This is shocking, John. What do you think?" I'm like, "What? Why is this shocking? This is normative Islam." And they're teaching it to these children at this mosque because it's a capital crime if they don't. They have to teach Islam to Muslim children. That's how it works. What do you expect them to teach at a mosque? Like Slurpee making? I mean, what do you think is going on at a mosque? They're teaching them Islam. They're teaching them that their duty is to wage war against non-Muslims, that non-Muslims are the worst of all creatures. Why? Because Allah said so. Verse 98:6. This is so what you got to understand. This is normative. This is everyday Islam. And I'll quote another prominent Muslim during the Norway Peace Conference. And he said, just because Muslims don't tell you this, and just because we're not out in the media saying it, doesn't mean it's not what we believe. And then he proceeded, you've seen the video, he proceeded to ask the whole crowd, hey, if Islam commands us to stone someone to death or to kill those who do this crime or that crime, if it comes from Allah and his messenger Muhammad, we have to impose it in the world. How many of you believe that? 100% of the hands go up of these thousands of people in the room. Normal, average, everyday Muslims.
Every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc., etc. It's the same old stuff coming all the time. And we always try to tell them, I always try to tell them that, look, it's not that speaker that we're inviting who has these extreme radical views, as you say. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Just because they're not telling you about it, or just because they're not out there in the media, doesn't mean they don't believe in them. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands. Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, take down your hands again. How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands.
Sisters in particular.
Everyone agree. Everyone agree. Brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. So it's not just these radical sheikhs then. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it is death, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind. And that is what we should apply in the world. Who agrees with that? Allahu Akbar. Are you all radical extremists? Subhanallah. So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims, you all go to the different masajid Norway, or are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that? Are you like that? No. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you're like this extreme Islam net sect or anything like that. No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to these normal masajids in Norway, the normal Sunni mosques? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar. So what's the politicians gonna say now? What is the media gonna say now? That we're all extremists? We're all radicals? We need to deport all of us from this country? Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Takbir! 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 May we have the next question, please?
So I think a huge understanding gap exists between the non-Muslim and the Muslim world because of the level of deception. They are taught to lie. In the Islamic law, it's obligatory to lie to for Muslims to lie to non-Muslims if it advances Islam. That's it.
All right, look, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Trento, United West, and John Guandolo, from a tremendous amount of teaching through the years, expert, subject matter expert. We're going to get into the FBI and your work there with one of the principles of the topic of our discussion, the Religious Liberty Commission that Trump did an executive order on May 1st, and the two Muslim individuals. But as we're talking here, originally I had about a 20-minute video in mind. But what we're doing, John, is really providing not just for people with experience, but people maybe new to the subject of the clash of civilizations. Samuel Huntington's great book of the Islamic world against the West. People see that, they sense it, they look at what's going on, but they don't quite understand it. What we're doing, our conversation, is a master class of two people who not only understand this at virtually every level. I'm a theologian by training. I understand not just the philosophical and political Islamic issues, but the theological issues. I think we just talk. If you got the time, this could be 2 hours of driving Mark crazy, but probably an hour. And there won't be much editing to this. Just sit and listen to what we're talking about, because we just laid a background, switching the metaphor, a foundation for the problem at hand. Who are these two individuals who claim to be very serious Quranic believing Muslims? What the hell are they doing sitting on a religious liberty commission developed by President Trump? If we're correct in what we're talking about, and we are, what are they doing there? Mark, you got your hand up. What? These two guys right here. John, who are these guys? Can you see them behind me?
Yeah. Hamza Yusuf and Ishmael Royer. Randall Todd, Ishmael Royer.
I want to go into them specifically, but I want to follow up from what you said earlier about what do you expect the mosques to teach and the Islamic schools to teach other than Islam? In 2013, Pew did a phenomenal global research survey of the mindset and the life of Muslim believers, true Muslims. And they covered the United States, the 3 million Muslims that were here. And the conclusions were that between 18 and 35-year-old Muslims, 50%, about 30% said, I support that. About 20% said, I do that. But the combined number was 50% of Muslims between 18 and 35 endorse suicide bombing to advance the doctrine of Islam in America. When I read that, you got to be kidding me. And you have to have that get into the crevices of your brain. We extrapolated based upon the number of Muslims in Florida and said the numbers between 5 and 10,000 18 to 35-year-olds will strap on a vest and blow themselves up if they know they could advance Islam in the state of Florida. Frightening stuff, but not if you follow what we are saying. You have a philosophical system, a comprehensive system called Islam. It's wrapped in a veneer. It's legitimately a religion in America because the IRS said it's a religion, so it enjoys First Amendment protection, which is another way in in how Islam infiltrates. And what are you going to do about this thing? And particularly when you have Westerners who want to believe everybody's good and well intended. Let's get to these two guys. Let me give everybody a little bit of a background. This commission has an advisory board of 14, no more than 14. It actually has 13 on it right now. It's headed up, John, by your guy, your Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. Good guy, bad guy? What's the story with him?
Well, again, I would say this, which Texas leader has decided to take on the and even identify the Islamic and communist movements in Texas that are destroying our communities? And the answer is none. So I kind of lump him in with all the other leaders. They're criminally negligent.
All right, so Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, is the chairman of this commission. Ben Carson is the vice chair, and on that board is this is the 13 people. I'll just name a few of them: Cardinal Timothy Dolan out of New York, Franklin Graham, Dr. Phil from television, Eric Metaxas, big writer, Kelly Shackelford, a lot of Catholic Protestant leaders and Jewish leaders, and then Pastor Paula White, the president's personal pastor. That comprises the board of 13. Then, by the executive order, there's an advisory board of religious leaders, and there are 7 of them. Protestant pastor Jetson Franklin, several bishops, archbishop, heavily loaded with conservative Catholics, Protestant pastor Jack Graham, Orthodox Jews. This is the religious advisory board. Then there's legal experts. There's 9 legal experts, 6 legal experts. Then we come to the subject at hand. There's an advisory board of lay leaders. Now, the objective of this Religious Liberty Commission is to produce research identifying areas where there's problems, where people of various faiths are having a difficult time, and what the solutions are. So it's a big research thing for 35 people now involved in this. And there are lay leaders is 9. Abigail Allen, who's from the Christian Broadcasting Network, Gene Bailey of Faith-Based Christian Television, Mark Hall from Regent University, Alveda King, we all know her. Then we come down to 2 guys, John, Ishmael Royer, so Randy Ishmael Royer, he's the guy over here, and Hamza Yusuf, the Islamic scholar. John, of these 35 people, 33 seem to be Trump-supporting conservative Jews, Protestants, and Catholics. How do these 2 Muslim guys? I got a question for you, John. You were a special agent in the FBI. If you were not a special agent in the FBI, if you were Sheikh Abu Guandolini, and you recruited these 2 guys to infiltrate this Religious Liberty Commission, what would be their mission? It's a 2-year deal. What would you direct them to do when they're with 33 other people of faith who are pretty conservative Jews, Catholics, and Protestants?
So their purpose would be the same as any jihadi inside the government, the elected side, the military, the intelligence community, the chambers of commerce, the media. It's to gather intelligence and propagate disinformation about your true course and Islam.
And for folks who aren't as familiar with the intelligence world, counterintelligence, information operations, sketch that out a little bit. We got a meeting 35 people in a big room, and the chair, Dan Patrick, and Ben Carson, the vice chair, said, "Okay, we're going to go around 5 minutes, everybody. Share why you're here and what you would like to see this group accomplished. Give us background on Ishmael Royer, your background in particular, and then tell our viewing audience what he would say his purpose was there, but in front of all these religious leaders."
Yeah, so what he would say is his purpose is to bring together the three great Abrahamic faiths and find strength and unity in our communities in order to do good for the benefit of all people. Some words to that effect. And he said, he's on video, he's on record saying words to that effect, which of course are complete lies because he's a jihadi, still a jihadi, was a jihadi. And let me be clear, not just a jihadi, not just a Sharia adherent Muslim, but he's a terrorist. He trained overseas with the terrorist Lashkar-e-Taiba. He worked in their offices in Pakistan. He fought in Bosnia with the Mujahideen. He is Mujahideen. And now he claims, it was just one grand mistake after another. He was investigated because he recruited a group of jihadis in Northern Virginia to be what came known publicly as the Virginia Jihad Network. They did paintball training to prepare for the jihad. My case at the Washington field office of the FBI prosecuted that, my squad. And I'm intimately familiar with this guy. He's a bad guy. He's still a practicing Sharia adherent Muslim. And so he's still a danger. And so that's him. And that's it. That's in a nutshell. But I want to reiterate, he was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. He served 14 years. And the charges he got, he didn't get charged with certain things because he cooperated with the government and confirmed that he trained in terrorist training camps in Pakistan, that he worked with Lashkar-e-Taiba, a designated terrorist organization. He did work for them in Pakistan, and he recruited people in the United States to fight for them overseas, and much more. But that gives your audience a gist who we're talking about. This guy has no business being anywhere near government or a church or a synagogue, much less leading interfaith talk.
Hey, John, you were involved in your team scooping the guy up. He did 14 years. I've watched videos of him where he talks about the mistakes he made, and he's making this bifurcation of Islam and extremists. Help our viewers understand what he's trying to do and what's really going on.
Right. Well, he's lying because he knows, because he studied Islam and he works with Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood scholars like Hamza Yusuf in the United States. He knows them. He knows Islam. And he knows that in Islam, it's obligatory to lie to non-Muslims to advance Islam. So the word extremism has nothing to do with what we're talking about. He's claiming it was a big mistake. He was an extremist back then, but now he's just a good devout Muslim. Well, a good devout Muslim, those are the guys fighting for Al Qaeda and ISIS. And if there's anyone watching this that doesn't understand that, then I would ask you, what Islamic law have you read? And I'll tell you 100% of the time, the people that make negative comments or derogatory comments about this discussion you and I are having, Tom, when I ask, what Islamic law have you read? 100% of the time, they'll say, I've never read Islamic law, but I don't have to because no religion would do that. And I'm like, well, actually, have you read what some of the ancient religions do, what some of the Native American, quote, religions do? They offer human sacrifice. So I don't know what you're talking about. Like, again, these people have lost the ability to critically think, to reason, and to discern factual information from false information. But the adults need to take back the discussion, and those people that are incapable of reasoned discussion need to be pushed out. But Randall Royer was a terrorist. He's still a terrorist. He's a jihadi, and he should be treated as such. You know, he's the kind of guy that we should be sending a pager, not sending him to the White House.
Sending him a pager. Well, he's in the White House now. What about Hamza Youssef, the world-renowned scholar? Both of these guys are American citizens, converts to Islam. What's the deal with and folks? Just you can Google Hamza Youssef's name and get a background. But John, briefly, what's the scoop on this Islamic, lovely, peaceful scholar?
Well, you just kind of hit the nail on the head. He's an Islamic scholar. He's the founder of something called Zaytuna College out in California that teaches Islamic law, Islamic studies. And somebody might ask, John, what does that mean? Well, it means they learn Islam, they learn Sharia. And again, I may sound like a broken record, but people still aren't getting it. 100% of all published Islamic law and 100% of all books used to teach Muslim children in Islamic schools, not just in the United States, in Canada, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, all say the purpose of Islam is to wage war against non-Muslims to establish an Islamic state under Sharia, which is the exact same objective of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Hezbollah, Hamas. It's in the Iranian constitution. It's in the Egyptian constitution. You know, it's the Cairo Declaration on Human Rights signed by the heads of state and king of every Islamic nation on earth. So what in the hell are people talking about when they say that's not Islam? It's the only thing Islam is. And I would just say, look around the world, the number of people being killed in the last 1400 years in the name of Islam, with people quoting the exact same sources over a period of 1400 years. Same sources, the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, right? Muhammad's the perfect example. He said, Muhammad did, I've been commanded to wage war until they testify there's no God but Allah. He took a bride at age 6, consummated the relationship when she was 9. He participated and beheaded up to 900 Jews after the Battle of the Trench. He participated in torturing people. He said somebody who commits adultery, and we know about it, has to be stoned. I mean, this is Islam. It's normative, basic Islam.
And here's an important point, folks. And again, if you study this stuff, if you look at it, if you dive into it, it's there. They've written everything out. This isn't like they're trying to hide this thing. They try to hide it to people who may be a little oblivious, but it's there. And part of what it's there is that the Islamic leaders understand that to defeat, to have conquest over a nation takes time, and it takes gross people. It takes a lot of people, and there's all kinds of diagrams. But if the Muslim world is 1% of the population, they go along to get along. If it's 2%, they start saying, "Hey, what about us?" 3%, and there's metrics for various percentages. Once you get to 10% of a population, like you have in Europe and Paris and Sweden and Norway and in England, now they start exercising political might, because at its base, Islam is a political machine, a machine to project supremacy to the point of submission. Islam means to submit, and to submit to the Sharia, and that's the perfect diagram for what Islamic doctrine is. So here in the United States, 3 million or so, that's what, 1%, tiny figure right now. So they don't have the mass to have the influence they would like to have. So John, explain to the folks how they're using their minority position in a maximum way through information operations at the various key sectors and the institutions of Western civilization of the United States of America.
All right, so that's a big question. First, I would say I don't think there are only 3 million. I think the Muslim leadership is downplaying the number of Muslims as a matter of deception in the United States. That's the first part. I think there are a lot more than 3 million, especially after 4 years of President Biden. But I think it was that way before even the first Trump administration. That number's been lingering around for a while, and they have brought many into this country, and they've had many children in the last 10 years. Okay, but that notwithstanding, I think what in my experience, what most Americans are shocked at is how well coordinated their efforts are. When I was working with Andrew Breitbart, when we were going out to California and working with him and some of the people out there, we would get reports of, like in Beverly Hills and in other areas, them showing up at these very high-end malls. And literally all at the exact same time, you'd have 36 Muslim women, all with babies, in full burqa, or at least hijab and the niqab, walking around the mall with their babies, and all overtly being like what was described to me as weirdly happy, like laughing and at things that just, it was like, they said it looked like it was a movie. Like they were all just laughing. And they do it for about an hour and then they'd all disappear. And the point is, that's to present an image. When you see them doing what they do in the community, forcing women-only hours at the pool on college campuses for Muslim women, that's Sharia. They got a Republican, Rick Perry, to sign into law the halal food law in Texas. That's Sharia. When they get the chambers of commerce to change certain policies at the state level and at the national level, that's Sharia. They just they may have passed yesterday. I don't know, but it looks like it's going to pass a bill in Texas, which is really based on insurance, but it's based on Sharia, Islamic law, to protect Sharia finance and Sharia compliant finance. It's all about Sharia. Everything they're doing. When they got the Bush administration to write the constitutions for Iraq and Afghanistan, making the law of those countries Sharia, the United States handed victory to Al Qaeda by writing those constitutions, because that's what they were fighting for. And we handed it to them on a silver platter because the United States has decided to listen to Islamic advisors instead of our professionals and do professional work like identify the enemy, read their doctrine, and actually fight the war based on that, not based on what a jihadi is telling you Islam is. After 9/11, who's sitting there with President Bush? Muzamil Siddiqui, the #1 Islamic scholar in North America, the #1 leader of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America, who's working in his administration, Suhail Khan, the grandson of one of the most prominent Muslim Brotherhood leaders in North America, in the history of the Muslim Brotherhood in America in the last 60 plus years. Mr. Trump just named a terrorist, Ismail Royer and Hamza Yusuf, a jihadi. He invited a Hezbollah guy to his inauguration. He appointed jihadi Amer Ghalib to be the U.S. ambassador for Kuwait, who's the former mayor of Hamtramck, who's a Sharia adherent jihadi. He names Bilal Isaili to be the U.S. attorney to Los Angeles. And I'll tell you, people who are coming after me right now and who are challenging me are quote unquote conservative Republicans, saying you don't know what you're talking about. Mossad Boulos isn't a Muslim, he's a Christian, and Rick Grinnell is a good guy and he knows more than you about all this. I'm like, okay. So why is he defending? Why has he, and I know this as a matter of fact, he's intervening when people are trying to expose Hamas jihadis who wear suits. He's intervening personally, making phone calls. Then why is Mossad Boulos and Rick Grinnell putting people and recommending people who are all jihadis? How about Ribal Chowdhury, who is working with the Trump administration? He's the guy that created, quote, Muslims for Trump. And he's a great conservative Republican Muslim. Well, that's bullcrap. He's a Hamas guy. He serves on the executive committee on the Council on American Islamic Relations. He's a jihadi. And by the way, he posted pictures online of himself in Qatar at the exact same time Mr. Trump was there. Makes me wonder if he was part of that delegation that went over. So the Trump administration is completely penetrated. It's a disaster. American leaders are failing us. And this is why I've said for at least 10 years, the citizens have to identify and flush out the communists and jihadis at the county level, because the state and federal government are never going to do it. And you need to start taking back your county, one county at a time. We train people how to do that. And that's it. That's the only solution that I see as viable at this point. If I thought there was another way, I'd be doing it.
John, we will put your contact information in this video. We've gone through a lot of stuff. I see part two. Part two is, okay, if you guys are right and Islam is a system completely antithetical to the American way of life, and these people are in contradistinction to the American way of life, and they're faking it, but it's a religion. So if Islam is a religion and we have the First Amendment and we're supposed to respect religions, how do we respect something that you're saying ought not be respected? Stay tuned for part two. We'll dissect that in part two. But you're teaching now, John, and you're in a position to bring this kind of information 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. Tell us a little bit about how somebody can get taught by your team.
So the program is called Into Action. It's at a minimum 1 day, most effective at the 2 day training. But we will, people contact us. We begin working with them, and they get together, whoever's going to host it, 25 to 65 or so people. And we come in and we show them how to organize, how to create a comprehensive program, where the bad guys are in the community. And then we let them, with our help, create a comprehensive plan to not only identify and flush the communists and jihadis out of their county lawfully, but to reestablish the founding principles, a Republican form of government at the county level. And you asked, my website is johnguandolo.com. There's a way to contact me on there and say, hey, I'd like to know more. There's a little spot on there about the Into Action program. And so we'd be more than willing to do that.
And we would advise that, obviously, many of us have sat under your training through the years, and many people should. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're experienced in this or new to it, this past hour, about an hour, Mark, I guess, it doesn't matter. I saw an interview with Tom Holman the other day, 3 hours, right? And I said, I gotta listen to that when I'm in the gym. So take this, two Italian guys talking about your life, America, the Islamic world. You can put your headset on while you're listening to it. Forward it to people who need to see it. If you like to continue getting this sort of material from the United West, we can use a donation of any sort. Go to our website, theunitedwest.org, and we will dive in. But the bottom line, summing everything up, we have these two guys who used to be up here. We have these two guys, Hamza Youssef and Randall Ishmael Royer, who are sitting on a commission right now to help advise the president about religious liberty in the United States of America. Some stuff you just can't make up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, John. As always, we love you. You take care, and we will be back in touch.
Thanks, Tom. God bless you and your whole team.
وتعودنا على الموت والتضحية هذه هي